Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show, episode number 71. And for this week, I have my teammate Spiffy on to talk about the Shaman deck, which he got to Legend with last season. Why don't you introduce yourself, Spiffy?
There's not much to say, I guess. Hit Legend with this deck, going from rank 3 to Legend, going 11-0. So I really wanted to share it with everybody. And some of my teammates used it, and it worked out pretty well for them.
Minus the Grimes, but anyway.
Minus the Grimes, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Spiffy's been on 3 videos in a row now, or 3 out of 4, I guess. Yeah, the Versus Series 1 is not 3 in a row this time. It's okay. Do not
I'm not
have,
playing today
yeah, we don't
or
have
tomorrow.
3 of the same people in a row. As for other stuff with videos, I'm rescheduling the weekend stuff a bit because I've been late on weekly shows 3 weeks in a row now, and it's because I'm streaming on Sunday. So I'm going to be streaming on Saturday or Sunday, and then I'll do the weekly show on the other day. So if I'm streaming on Sunday, I'll do it on Saturday, and vice versa. So I'll just get that done because it was a bit weird to have all of them together. It just meant that it was a lot of work to do randomly, and sometimes I just couldn't get it done. So, yeah, the weekly shows have been delayed for the past couple of weeks. But anyway, without further ado, let's go on to the actual deck. Now, when we tried this earlier, Hearthstone DC'd on me. Uh, so anyway, let's move down here. Now, this is a Shaman deck, so as natural with a Shaman deck, about 20 of the cards are common between decks, or in this case, about 15, I'd say. So the first ones are Earthshock and Lightning Bolt. Noticing the lack of Rockbiter here.
Yeah, I took Rockbiter out because I don't have Doomhammer or Alec here, so I didn't really need the extra burst. And with all the Hunter I saw, I didn't really want to see or take damage to the face and not keep retained value. So I just subbed those in for the Zombie Chows.
Okay, so Zombie Chow's acting as the kind of extra one round of removal.
Mm-hmm. Because it has retained value sometimes, like it'll kill like a Leper Gnome and still be on the field, and just or took out like one of their removals, like a Lightning Bolt, which I'm fine with. Things like that. It just had more versatility than Rockbiter.
Did they ever get a bit cloggy? Like you just draw too
They
many of them?
do. Late game they get pretty bad, but sometimes it's actually okay because in the Warrior matchup they like chink armor, like when they're at 30 health anyways. So it's been working out pretty well.
Okay.
Definitely better than the Rockbiter that just gets stuck there sometimes.
Something else I've noticed just while we're on the one drops is that this particular deck with double Zombie Chow and the Haunted Creepers as well, you haven't gone for the Undertaker route.
No, even though I
Didn't
run
go
the
full
Belchers
Death
too,
Rattles.
I didn't want to go full Death Rattle, yeah, because sometimes I feel like when you go the Undertaker route, you like rely on drawing Death Rattles consistently,
Hmm.
and having only 6 out of 30 cards as Death Rattle, I didn't think it was worth it.
That's fair enough. So moving down, Flame Tongue is Flame Tongue. It's just
That card's
one of
just good in general.
it's just one of the best Shaman 2 drops and one of the best 2 drops in general. It's really good. It's not really a 2 drop. It's like a 4 drop that costs 2 mana. But
Yeah,
Haunted Creeper. Now, in my opinion, along with Hunter, Haunted Creeper is like abused the most by Shaman.
it's just too good because you have the Flame Tongue. The trade value is like ridiculous with the Spectral Spiders,
Mm.
and it's like annoying to deal with, and it deals with a lot of the early aggro pretty well.
I've actually noticed some of the Shamans have been cutting this down to 1 because they don't want them to clog later.
Mm.
But I've seen you just go straight for the 2. Is that just more for consistency as opposed to
Yeah,
clogging?
it's like I said during when I was playing my Legend push, I saw a lot of Hunters, and this card just beats Hunter.
Mm.
It's like I said with Zombie Chow, it just has retained value, and it's good with the Flame Tongue. And I guess what people don't do with it enough as Shaman is they don't cash it in, like they kind of keep it alive. Like if I have Flame Tongue in my hand, I'm gonna cash it in and get the spiders early, so I can get 3 extra damage off both of them.
It's like the opposite of Hunter.
Mm.
Where against Hunter you always kill it, against Shaman you never kill it.
Yeah, but I try and kill it myself as often
Yeah,
as I can.
exactly.
Yeah,
So yeah, Haunted Creeper is just the 2 drop of choice here, basically.
correct. Yeah.
Alright. Feral Spirits is one of the best aggro stops in the game. Always has been,
Definitely.
probably always will be.
Hmm.
Hexes, especially relevant now. Some people cut down to 1 for a bit. I think it's back up to a 2 staple now because of Handlock's return.
Yeah, Hemlock and the Priest
Yeah,
and
you
Warrior,
need these.
and Druid.
Um,
Yeah, 2x is too good to pass up.
Yep. And the last of the 3 mana spells that every shaman should play is the Lightning
Yeah.
Storm.
Some people used to
Yeah.
used to only run one, but I think it's too good to run two.
Yeah, I think you actually needed to. Like, whenever people cut one, it was always a bit risky.
Hmm.
I mean, I know that they can be kind of dead in some matchups, but it's still super good.
Yeah, I think you need two for the consistency draw, I think. And it's just too good, yeah.
I think it's the best of the 2 damage sweepers.
Yeah, and you can on a turn five a possible 3 or 4 damage. Like a turn five flame strike sometimes.
Yeah, 3 or 4 damage with Spell Power Totem if you're lucky enough.
Hmm. If you're lucky enough, yeah.
But being at 3 mana is really relevant. Overload is a bit of a deception when it comes to the drawback, because
Hmm.
you only notice Overload, in my experience, when you cast a non-Overload card afterwards.
Yeah.
So like some of the big end stuff that we'll get to a bit later. Because Overload cards, it's kind of weird where they have reduced cost, so you can often just go Feral Spirits into Lightning Storm and not really notice the Overload.
Hmm.
Well, not turn 3, turn 4,
Not
but a little bit
turn,
later on.
yeah, turn four, turn five.
Yeah, so that does happen. All right, so Big Game Hunter. This is an interesting choice in Shaman.
Yeah, I saw like a lot of warriors and a lot of hand locks too later on, and it makes the matchup more winnable because I know those matchups are actually pretty good for Shaman anyways. But
Hmm.
um, with like the additions of Sludge Belcher into the meta, you don't really want to waste your hexes on like Belcher. You want to like keep answers for more things, which is why I ran the Black Knight and the Big Game Hunter and the double hex. You just need more answers sometimes.
Okay, so this is pretty much always hitting Giants or Ragnaros, I should imagine.
Yeah, and Van Cleef sometimes when they get really greedy. It's worked. It's worked against high mains that get Houndmastered. It works against some people running Baron Geddon nowadays and Van Cleefs.
Yeah, Baron Geddon is sometimes just the Shaman killer.
Yeah, and I don't want to burn a hex on that because I'd rather just be a game hunter it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it has the 7 attack, but it only has 5 life, so you don't really want to hex it.
Hmm.
Manatee Totem has become a bit more popular recently as a one-of again.
Yeah, I think so. It's a really good card when you put it behind taunts. It's not too good when you play it on three and you have a board, but sometimes you just cycle it.
It's exceptionally good against Freeze Mage.
Oh yeah,
You just
and it just takes burn away. Like they'll use like a frost bolt or like a lightning bolt, and it's like a +1 every single time.
and if they don't, you draw your deck.
Hmm.
So it's very very good against those slower decks, especially with taunts. That's why some people ran it as a 2-off for a bit. I think it's too situational to run as a 2-off.
Yeah, I think so too. This card is really good against priest. I actually sometimes keep it on the coin if I'm able to get early board presence
Yeah, I could definitely
because
see that.
they'd have to have silence or shadow word pain, and no one really runs pain anymore.
Yeah, because if you coin it out, even if they have the cultist, they can't kill it until you get 2 activations.
Hmm.
Okay, that's definitely understandable. Double defender. I've seen some people running 1. What's your justification for 2?
Um, the aggro matchups, like even getting like a 1/3 taunt off of your totem,
Hmm.
is just really good, and it baits out like Black Knight sometimes, and I don't know, it's really good to save damage to your face, and I think two is really good because with my experiences, I usually get like perfect 2 minion Arguses every single time.
That's fair enough. I think one of the reasons why you're able to fit a lot of the stuff in here is because you're just not running Rockbiter combos, as you said earlier.
Yeah, because then I noticed when I play Rockbiter on five, if I had to, it slows down my late game too much, and then I just get behind, and Rockbiter or Doomhammer doesn't bring me back in fast enough as like playing Fire Elemental on six does.
Okay, that's fair enough actually. It feels a bit like Force of Nature combo, where the some of Druid decks can fit ridiculous amounts of different cards into them, but it's just because they're not running the combo.
Hmm.
So I think it's a similar concept here.
Yeah, it felt a little clunky with the Doomhammer Rockbiter. I know it's still good. I run it in my other like burst deck, but in this one like I wanted to make it super control, and it just works out pretty well.
Okay. Gnomish is your Drake. You need cycling
Hmm.
cards and Shaman because sometimes you just have way too many spells in your hand.
Yeah, and people usually run like one Drake. Have been running one Drake, but I think you need more cycle ability,
Okay.
and it's just better in control matchups if you run two.
Something I'm a little interested about here is just how heavy on 5 drops you are actually. Running Loatheb
Hmm.
and 2 Sludge Vultures.
So the good thing about not running like overload heavy stuff is you're able to actually play more consistent things. So like if you play Lightning Storm or Feral Spirit on three, you can still play a 5 drop. You won't be able to play your Argus or Gnomish Adventure, but you usually wouldn't anyways, because those two cards that you're playing on four are more responsive. So you're able to play like a 5 drop without being overloaded, I guess.
Mm. Okay, that's fair enough. So you can kind of get away with it by curving off your 3 drops.
Hmm. And you just less overload stuff to be able to play the bigger things.
Mm. I think something worth saying is that Feral Spirits is probably one of the best late game 3 drops in the game.
Yeah, it's definitely a comeback card because it's so annoying. It's so annoying to deal with after they've wasted all their removal on other stuff.
Yeah, it's an aggro stop, and late game it can actually be pretty good against control if you've already used everything.
Yeah.
One of the best cards in the deck probably, but or actually moving on to what I personally think is the best card in the deck, Fire Elemental.
Oh yeah, the card's way too good, and I don't know. It's six for a 6/5, and you get to kill something pretty much. I don't know. You can't not run this card as a Shaman player.
It's a lightning bolt on a 6/5.
Yeah,
It
with no overload. It's so good.
and sometimes it can just go to the face for extra damage. Usually it doesn't, but sometimes it can
It's
for a
so
bit of
versatile
extra
as a
reach.
card, and it's just a huge board presence. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think Fire Elemental is one of those cards where in the more controlling shamans it always kills minions, and then in the bursty shamans it can sometimes be used for a bit of extra reach. So
Yeah,
it's never bad. I think that's the main thing about Fire Elemental. It's never bad.
yeah. It really isn't. It's always good when you see it in your hand on turn six. It's like the best thing.
Yeah, it's also one of the 6 drops which doesn't punish you for like tempo wise like High Main does.
No, this gives you tempo. It's like I don't know.
It's the
This card's
tempo
ridiculous.
six
This card's
drop.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's the opposite of High Main. High Main is the Death Rattle one. Fire Elemental is the Battle Cry powerhouse, and traditionally Battle Cry is better than Death Rattles.
Hmm.
So Fire Elemental, I think, in my opinion, Fire Elemental is the best non-legendary 6 drop. Definitely,
I think
maybe
yeah,
best 6 drop.
for sure. I think so.
It's one of the reasons to play Shaman.
I had like 5 fire elementals in arena one time, and I went 12-1 because it was just too good.
Yeah, it's a bit absurd in arena where you because they're common, you keep getting them.
Yeah, they're
But
common. Yeah, it's
yeah, Fire Elemental always going to be an all-star in Shaman. If it ever isn't, then Blizzard have done a bit too much power creep. So I'll put it that way. Now, the last 2 cards in this deck is actually something which I would say that between a few people and almost no one are playing. The Black Knight is an interesting one. You kind of mentioned it earlier along Big Game Hunter. Has this been
hmm
working well for you? How many taunts have you been running into?
this card is like the reason you win games pretty much. It's like a tempo swing that just wins you games. You have like Sludge Belcher. Um, I saw like some ramp druid on the way up, and it just kills the Ancient of War because they don't expect it. Like I burned through 2 hexes. They play war so nonchalantly, and then you just Black Knight it.
And basically win.
And
If you
Temple's
just
like swings the handlock matchup more. Yeah, it's really good.
the handlock matchup's actually relevant because I remember Black Knight was always bad against handlock in Druid because
Hmm.
you were always being reactive, not proactive.
Hmm.
Whereas in Shaman, you actually have a lot of stuff on the board if they take the turn to set up the taunts. You can actually Black Knight something, and pretty much it's almost like a big game hunter sometimes in those games, depending on
Yeah, like
how fast your start was.
the tempo that it gives you in the shop as shaman is so good because most things are like low, cheap, like value removal, I guess, and this just adds on to that.
That's fair enough. Now, the last card here is the card which I can never get to work in a deck ever because I have ridiculously bad luck with Ragnaros. I have actually highlighted clips on my stream of Ragnaros's missing every shot for like 8 turns, and yeah, I had a Rag on the board for 6 turns, and I lost because it kept hitting the wrong things.
No,
But
this card has been my saving grace. I know if you talk to Zoomwana, uh he's won games with Rag RNG hitting stuff. And I don't know, it's really good. And sometimes like Shaman runs out of burst because I'm not running Doomhammer Rockbiter or Lava Burst, and this card just extra added. And they usually burn, like for example the priest matchup's really hard, but once they burn Two Shadow or Death on a fire elemental, like Rag's pretty free to do whatever he wants. Same with other classes, no one really expects it. They waste shield slot executes on other stuff, and they don't really have anything for Rag.
yeah,
Um, and like I played like a lot of warriors that they just drop BGH on turn 3 if they have nothing else to play, and then because they don't know I run Rag. So it's the surprise factor that no one really expects on ladder that you get this thing to work.
Rag's on the down low at the moment, where Rag has this weird thing about him where he's kind of like a self-defeating legendary, where
Mm.
at the moment I'd say he's at his strongest he's been in a while because no one's playing him, so no one's playing BGH.
Hmm.
Basically, there's one or two, but I don't think I've seen a big game hunter in a very long time.
I think only warriors run BGH, and
Basically,
then
yeah.
they're the only ones that run Rag as well. I think.
Yep. So Rag is on the down low at the moment, but the funny thing about Ragnaros is when he's popular, he's terrible. Like you play him and then he hits some random token and gets big game hunted instantly.
Hmm.
But at the moment, no one's playing him apart from warriors, which have to play him.
Yeah. Yeah, this card has done wonders for me. It's good surprise factor. No one really expects it, and it's extra burst that I need sometimes.
Yeah. So it's the more efficient way of getting the burst damage for the more control-y shaman decks,
Hmm.
as opposed to multi-card. Where the burst shamans, I've noticed burst shaman, they seem to be, well, literally more explosive, but they do have those weird hands where you just have 8 or 9 spells in your hand and you can't really do anything because they're
It's just like all
one more
burst.
life than
Yeah.
you can actually kill. That does happen. I've been playing a lot of burst shaman recently, and every so often, like I've had games where you just have so many spells in your hand and you just can't do anything with them because all that is supposed to be burst.
Hmm.
Whereas this deck seems a lot more minion heavy than most shamans.
Yeah, it definitely is. But the only other spells that I don't run that most shamans do is Rockbiter though, and the
Mm.
Doomhammer. Because I tried Bloodlust, I didn't like it. Um, that's probably the only other card that you would consider running. But yeah, this deck is just more control, more minion heavy, more consistent draws and plays per turn. Not much overload, and just like good value on everything.
I think you've got a lot less dead cards that are very hyper situational. I think you've
Hmm.
got Big Game Hunter and Black Knight, but Black Knight can always be played as a 4/5 if needed.
Yeah, and everyone's playing with Sludge Belcher right now, anyways. So that
Yeah,
card's just good. It's a good response.
so it always hits. So I think the strength of this deck is actually that most shamans have a lot of situational cards where, even though the only spells they're running this deck isn't this Rockbiter, there's also usually an Alakir or maybe 2 Doomhammers or some Lava Bursts, which I think people are a bit too clingy with them when they play them.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a bit like
Yeah,
Kill Command.
they just become dead draws if you don't want to use them as clears because your deck's designed to burst. And I just thought it was a little clunky in your hand sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think this is probably a much more consistent deck and probably better for laddering.
Hmm. I would think so. And then I actually coached Grimes on Skype for a few games because I know he had trouble with it. And the one thing about this deck that you have to do is you have to know how to place your minions for Flame Tongue and Argus and things like that. Like if you don't have good placement on your minions, you don't get good Flame Tongue plays or traits, and then you just kind of lose from there because you end up sacrificing something that you don't really want to sacrifice, kind of thing.
Okay.
So like this deck is a lot about placement. You have to know where to place your minions on the board and when to expect certain things. And that's yeah. After that, it's just all value trades, and you just have a huge board the whole time.
Yeah, Shaman's very good at the whole grow wide type
Hmm.
type board states. Okay. So, what about matchups? Are there any particularly bad matchups for this deck? Any really good ones?
Bad matchups is Paladin, whether it's aggro or control. That matchup's really hard. Um, the super control priests that run like Ysera and like Wild Pyros and double Cabal,
Hmm.
that deck's pretty hard to beat sometimes, depending on how well you draw in the beginning. And I say Miracle is like 50-50. Hunter is a little bit over 50. Uh, I actually beat zoos all the time. I like hardly ever lose to a zoo player. Handlock is like 70%. Warrior is like 70%. And what what are the other classes? Druid. Druid's pretty easy too, because of Black Knight.
Yeah. So, Shaman. I think Shaman is traditionally quite powerful against the control decks.
Hmm.
With the exception of Priest because they have Cabal and Shadow Madness and
Yeah, it's
crazy
actually the
stuff.
reason why I cut Harvest Golem, because to make that priest matchup a little bit easier. Because like late game, if you draw Harvest Golem, you know he hasn't played a Cabal Shadow Priest yet.
It's just
You don't really
horrible.
want to play that. You don't want to play that card. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, because it actually actively hurts you if you play it.
Hmm. So I cut Harvest Golem for that reason, and the deck became more consistent.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on for this week, Spiffy.
No problem, man.
We've got BlizzCon going on. Well, now technically, but we've also got the panel starting on the weekend. So we may
Friday.
end up with some spoilers for the next set since they've already spoiled some of the planned things, and there was a trademark done on one of the WoW locations for something related to Hearthstone.
Hmm.
So I'm expecting we might get some card spoilers at BlizzCon, which would be really cool.
Yeah, and I'll be there too. So if you miss something, I'll definitely be there to tell you what it is.
Yep, Spiffy lives like 15 minutes away from the venue apparently.
Yeah, it's really close.
So he'll be at BlizzCon, which is really really cool. I'll be sitting at home watching from halfway around the world. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or want to ask Spiffy any questions, put it in the comment section. But as for now, this has been Jotto and Spiffy, signing off.